Hello, this is National Chess Master R. Rats. I'm here to continue my series on the Nimzovich defense, and let's have a look at what we've got this time. Okay, and anyway, d4. As I've said, this is the most common move you're going to face. Actually, I did a little research, and knight f3 is actually played more commonly, but that's mostly on the master level. A lot of masters don't know this opening and would like to avoid it, whatever that tells you. But on the level of blitz chess and amateur chess, this is the line you're going to run into more often than not. And as I said in my last video, I don't think knight f3 is a very good move for white, simply because black has the Fred at his disposal. If you missed my last video, you got to go find it, and there'll be more on the Fred soon. But anyway, as I say, I play d5 in this position. This is the move I'm experienced with. I'll say it again, e5 is for black is perfectly logical and fine. You can play that if you choose. I just haven't tried it myself. And as I say, I believe this is the position you're going to run into more frequently than any other position in the Nimzovich defense. White will just push by with e5. I have countless blitz games with this, and eventually I get into some of those, but not just yet. I want to show longer time control games and correspondence games to try to show more precise play. A lot of those blitz games have silly blunders in them. Okay, so this was played in ICCF Masterclass back in 1986 to 88 against a fellow from the old nation of East Germany. I played a number of people from East Germany, one in another section when the wall came down, and he lived in a town called Potsdam, which is right on the outskirts of Berlin, and he mailed me a piece of the wall when it came down. I don't know what it's worth. It's not for sale. But anyway, kind of fun to be involved in ICCF Masterclass when the Eastern, or I should say when the Iron Curtain came down. Okay. Bishop f5. Somebody commented in one of my videos that there's a new book out where black plays one knight c6 against anything white plays, and the section on the Nimzovich recommends f6 at this point and delaying bishop f5. And the reason they give in that book, and I haven't read it yet, is because white will kick that bishop with knight e2 and g3. And that's exactly what I'm going to show in this, the knight e2 variations. Again, the only video I made so far with this e5 push is the first one after the introduction, and I showed a game from 3 years before I adopted this opening, and I basically only knew that opening in theory and principle and the ideas, and winged it on my own. And here, now we're getting deep involved into Hugh Meyer's excellent series on the Nimzovich and his analysis and so forth and so forth. So this is a more serious contest. But as I can tell, I only have 2 game examples with knight e2. And this is supposedly the move that the new author is saying to play f6 because of this knight e2 and knight g3 idea. It is a little different than the lines where black or white plays c3, but let's just go ahead and have a look. And as I was saying, I was always playing e6. I didn't switch over to f6 right away. F6 certainly is playable in that position, but let's just have a look at this. And okay, so now comes h4. Now we're still in theory, and it's interesting. I was just looking at the theory up just before I got these videos ready, or these games loaded for sharing. And one interesting move that's not given at all is for black to play pawn to h6. It's not given. And it's very similar to what happens in Caro-Kann position, right? The only difference being black has a pawn on c6, right, in the advanced Caro-Kann. Or in a lot of the other variations when black takes on e4, and then the knight takes back on e4 and kicks the bishop like it does here, black will be playing h6. It's not even mentioned in Meyer's book. He does give f6 as a line, then h5 and bishop f7. This is a maneuver you might want to try if you want something a little slower. I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just I can't sit here and show all of Meyer's analysis on this. This is just something you do in your own free time when if you're developing the Nimzovich defense as your repertoire. But H6 is certainly worth a look. I can't see anything fundamentally wrong with it. What's going to happen is both H pawns, you won't see it in this game, but you'll see it in the next game, both H pawns come under fire, and we'll just go from there. Okay, but I played H5. That was the move that's given in Meyer's book, main line, and I wanted to test the main line. But now you can see, as I was saying, the H pawns are coming under fire. White is on Black's 3 times. Black's only on it twice. But Black has resources, and here they come. Knight B4, which threatens to pick up some material with knight takes C2 check, right? So White needs to cover that. And now, it's one thing about this knight G3 variation, because of this little trick of knight B4, Black is able to get C5 in. So here's Black playing his French defense type formation, where he doesn't have the French bishop. It's developed and it's active. So sometimes Black can, as I was explaining in the introduction video, Black can get C5 in eventually, but it's not something he can do right away. He's got to do a little maneuvering to get it in, and it's simply because that knight is on C6 blocking it. But the idea of it never goes away. It isn't always played, but it's more often than not an option that you can employ. Okay, so now we kick back and I come back. Okay, and now at this point, White played a novelty. I noted that on my score sheet. It wasn't in the book, and actually, unfortunately, what happens from a purist point, even though this is master class, White proceeds to just play really weak, and just allows me to do anything I want. And even though it's weak play on White's part, the game is interesting simply because of all the potential that the Black position has from this opening. You'll still see a lot of the themes, the key squares and the key concepts. Like here, Black has got his thematic C5 in. F5 is being countered a little bit, but it's still an open square that Black can contest. The knight can get to E7 and F5 easily enough at some point. And like I say, that's a key square that Black wants to have his army step through. They'll sit there and occupy it one at a time, and if they get traded off, they get traded off. But as long as they're there, they're exerting a lot of influence in the position. But anyway, White played a novelty, Queen B3, and now I'm on my own. That's not in Meyer's book. I've got to sit down and analyze. And as I was saying, I was spending hours and hours on these moves, and particularly even when it wasn't my move. You know, this game took over 2 years to complete, and there's a lot of downtime when you don't get a card from somebody. And I would always be looking at my games in my free time, preparing for what moves could be coming and so forth. I was really dedicated to this correspondence chess, and when I was really active in it. But anyway, I played Queen D7, and I can't tell you all the rationale as to why I chose that move, but it seems like a logical move. It develops the queen. It doesn't take a square away from a Black piece that might want to march through D7, so it's reasonable. And let me just show you the continuation now. And here I elected to go ahead and push by with C4, and this seizes some space, and eventually what Black would like to do, he's not ready to do it yet, will be to march B5 and B4. Black has that break, and White doesn't necessarily have this break on his side, because at some point if he plays B3, he may be left with a backward pawn on the open file if I exchange. So the Black pawn structure on the queen side is certainly better, and White immediately blunders here. It's kind of sad, but again, it just shows the potential of the Black position. And I said White blundered, so a little quiz: Black to move and do the best he can. Pause the video. Okay, you've come back. I hope you found this little trick: knight takes E5. It just wins a pawn. If White trades queens, the knight on e5 comes back and takes the queen, and black's a pawn up. So he didn't like that, so he played knight b5, and I just put the knight back on c6, get it out of danger. And really, white has nothing to show for his pawn, and he's going to drop more wood here, as we'll see. So now he moves a piece a second time in the opening, and I still haven't developed my king side. What am I going to do? I just continue developing my queen side. Now there's some tricks here. He can't really take on a7 because I can go back and pin that knight. But anyway, I don't remember all the rationale for why I played the moves I did. All I know is that I spent hours on these positions and did my best to find the most accurate move. It's a luxury you have in chess by postcard, especially when you're playing somebody on the other side of the world and with slow mail delivery. Often be 3-4 weeks between postcards, even though we might only spend 2 or 3 days reflection time per move. Okay, so I kick that guy out. Time to get rid of it. I don't want it there. And unfortunately, it just left another tactic open, and that he missed. And I'm sorry, I should have given a quiz. But knight takes d4, and what can he do? He's just his queen's under attack again. If he just retreats the queen, I save the knight. So he traded queens, and now he sees if he plays c takes d4, I have bishop takes b4, and I'm not only winning another pawn, I'm regaining the sacrifice piece. So now I'm up 2 pawns, and I have a decent position. I'm not entirely developed yet. My king is safe in the center of the board because he can't bust open those pawns without sacking a piece or 2. So the game just continued. Now I get my guys out, and now he decided to castle. And there's the key square, knight f5. Something that black wants to do is occupy that square. But black's just up 2 pawns with a simple winning position. All black has to do is finish this development and start making exchanges and go in for an ending with a 2-pawn advantage. And there's really nothing white can do. And there goes another pawn. It's kind of a shame. I don't remember exactly why he did that, or if he had a better move. I guess maybe he has to take on f5. But now white's down 3 pawns, and I said it's not the greatest example, but it just shows some certain ideas that black would like to employ. He's got a rock solid position. White never had any active threats. The only thing was possibly the pawn on h5, and we'll cover that in the next game. Okay, so knight c2, knight f5, and now he decided it's time to take it. And I'll just show the final moves here. It doesn't last all that much longer. And look at that wonderful square to put the bishop on. It's just anchored in his position. So now, like I say, just offer exchanges, develop and offer exchanges. What can he do? And there's really nothing he can do. So he gave a check, and really his game is resignable. He's down 3 pawns, and here he just decided to try a sacrifice, which really doesn't get him anywhere at all. And he grabs this pawn. Now he has 2 connected passed pawns on the queen side, but that's all he has. And I just have to step carefully here. I can't go to c6. I'm going to drop the rook on c8 for his knight, but I just come back here, and he gets his pawns rolling. But I have center pawns too, and the best way to meet a wing attack is counter in the center. So I'm going to get my center pawns rolling, and we just a couple more moves, and then white gave up, and I played h4. And really, he's done about all he can in his position. I've tied his knight down on b5, so he can't. It has to be guarded by the pawn on a4, so he can't just throw another piece to me with a5. So black found a good time to resign, or white found a good time to resign here. Okay, so that was that game. It wasn't the greatest game, but it was an example. Now let's talk about the other a more normal type game. This next game was played in 1991, 1992, so it was played a few years after, and it was the first and I think only United States Correspondence Team Championship where every major organization entered a team. USCF was in, CCLA, the Chess Connection, APCT, American Postal Chess Tournaments, and then one called NOST, which stands for Knights of the Square Table. And most of those organizations have gone under now. They don't exist. As it's kind of sad, and I know a lot of the players that played in them have since passed away. Don't know really what's active in correspondence chess now. I'm only getting reacquainted and enthusiastic now with online play here at chess.com. And it's kind of fun to get immersed back in like I used to and spend hours and hours trying to find the best move. But anyway, we played 2 games against everybody from every team, and so I had black here, and obviously I played the Nimzovich defense. Okay, so we just run through the moves, and we see this is, as I said, this is the other line with knight g3, and as I say, I'm more accustomed to running into c3 followed by f4, those kind of lines, and I'll be playing f6. But this is one of the few examples I have of the knight e2 line. I'm certain I've run into it at Blitz a number of times, but I've never really run into it the way this game panned out, where the h pawns get exchanged simply because both sides pile up on them. Okay, so this does follow the other game to an exact point, and then it diverges. And then black gets his thematic c5 in, then c3 and knight c6. Now, according to Myers, bishop d3 is an alternative move, and that's the only other move. The move 10 bishop e3 that my opponent played is new. It wasn't given. So once again, we are on our own. And if you notice, both sides have some problems holding on to their king rook pawns. White can capture black's right away, but black has a resource, which you will see when we get there, when he does take it off. Okay, so I can't remember all the reasons why I did all my moves. I can just show you these are the moves that I felt were the best moves. And now I stopped and give a check. And what's the purpose of giving a check? Let's ask. I just spent a tempo doing that. So anytime I see a move where I just spent a tempo doing that, I wonder. I guess I'm trying to induce bishop d2 and deprive him of castling, because if he does, I exchange on d2 and he has to take with his king. Otherwise, he's going to have h5 hanging, right? Okay, so he parked his king on f1. And, again, this is not booked, but I worked this out as I felt was the best choice. And now he's winning a pawn. But as I was saying, I have a recourse, and the recourse is I just chase his bishop out, and he has to go back, and then I go and take that pawn. So now we've just, as I said earlier, we've traded our rook pawns. And from this point on, for the next several moves, the game is essentially very even. I can tell after I haven't looked at this in years, and I could tell looking it over that I was playing a little aggressively, and we'll see that when we come to that point. Technically, I would have to say the game is probably dead even, and a drawn result is a fair result. Okay, so let's just move on, and I'll show you what happened. Now, I think that's an interesting move, g4. It's keeping my knight out of f5 where it wants to go. So we'll give that move an exclamation point on black's part. Again, now my next move is kind of puzzling, at least to me. One strategy black can employ now or in the next couple moves is to play the bishop to a5 and b6. Now, why do I want it on b6? Well, the point of wanting the bishop on b6 is that you're not winning d4, but you're tying white down to defending d4. And anytime you have your minor pieces attacking your opponent's pawn center, and he has to use his minor pieces to protect it, you have the better minor pieces because yours are attacking and his are defending. Enough said. And maybe you can use your minor pieces to run somewhere else and go threaten something else and make your opponent react, and then come back and go attack the other one again. There's all kinds of things at your disposal when you have the better minor pieces. So anyway, I played knight c8, which is apparently trying to get the knight into b6, because that's where it's going to go here shortly. I don't know about taking on a3. It's something you could work on your own if you want, but I doubt you're going to get this position yourself, but you could get a similar position. Does black want to take there? It gives white an extra open file and the bishop pair. So what it's worth. Now again, I could play bishop a5 with the idea of bishop b6, right? I could. There's nothing wrong with it, but I have the idea of getting the knight into b6, so I came back to e7, and now it's just maneuvering. And again, I think this game is very, very even. Neither side is really making any progress, but I'm the kind of guy sometimes that will get impatient, or I used to. I will try to stir something up when maybe there isn't anything there, and that can get kind of risky when you're playing a really good player, because if you overdo things and make a tactical slip, they have enough time to work things out. And now I came back to h7, and you ask why h7. Well, it's kind of an optimistic idea. We're not so much defending f7. We are hoping at some point to plant the other rook on h7. That's the idea. Okay, and then we have doubled rooks on the open file. And then white does this castling by hand maneuver. And here I play knight c4. And I'm inviting bishop takes c4 because that gives this d5 square to my queen, and that queen would be very useful on d5. It would be pinning a knight. He wouldn't have his white squared bishop to defend a lot of those key light squares. So he came back to c1. So for what it's worth, my aggressive play seems to have gained a little bit, and sometimes you can, just in that, you can get over optimistic about your chances. And anyway, as we were playing this, I was building up a winning position in our other game, and naturally I would love to win both games, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to win both games. Okay, so one drawback with queen b6 is it takes my queen off d5, and so as I said, I was getting a little too aggressive here. What else could I do? Well, I could play queen d7. That develops the queen. It doesn't give the queen a whole lot of other squares, but it does develop the queen. And then I could swing the rook to d8, or even castle queenside. Okay, so probably queen d7 is a better move, because you'll see what's going to happen here real quick. There's some poison in this position that I just wasn't careful about. Okay, so now he gets the move d5 in, and now his queen actually occupies d5 and mine doesn't. And what's my queen doing on b6? It's not really doing much at all. So as I say, I got a little over optimistic about my chances. Here I invited a queen exchange, but he doesn't want that. And I think this next move that I played was not the best. I castled queenside, and I think just rook d8 is fine. It just kind of put the king in some danger. My kings could be okay there on e8. I don't know. Does he get anything with e6? Maybe, but I've let his queen get active, and mine isn't really all that active. But I castled, and then kind of what's going to happen here is I just went into this long series blamed. I really don't understand how I did it, because there's going to be a long series of exchanges that certainly are easy to analyze, and the net result is, at the end of it all, I'm going to end up with a losing game. I just can't remember everything. I just wasn't careful with my analysis, because I'm actually going to lose this game, as you'll see. I didn't have to trade queens. That was probably a mistake. And here I'm just getting myself in trouble. Probably the best choice is to just give up the pawn and maybe go grab the one on e5 at some point. But I just try to hang on, and naturally this invites some counterplay, opening up a lot of critical files. Excuse me. Okay, so next move. Now here comes another one, and you'll see what happens here in a moment. I just was blind and didn't see what was going to happen. Now all these files have opened up. If my king wasn't loose, the game would be a draw. You can see the position. If the black king wasn't exposed like this, the game's just going to amount to nothing more than a draw. But unfortunately, the king isn't safe. It's just under attack. And here, it's just time to give up. I resigned here. You can try it on your own. No matter where I go, I'm in trouble. If I go to King E8, Rook C8 check wins my bishop. If I go King E6, pretty much the same thing happens. Rook C6 check, and I get to interpose my bishop. And if I put my bishop on D6, he just piles up on the pin piece, and I can't defend it. So it was a good game by white. I overplayed my hand here, obviously. Just looking back, let's just backtrack for a couple minutes, or a couple moves here. Here we are on move 36, and on move 22 was when I got him to concede to put his bishop back on C1. It's hard to believe that black could get a losing position from this in 14 moves. And looking at it now and today, Queen D7 certainly makes logical positional sense. Queen B6 is just being a little over optimistic. And as I pointed out, the bishop belonged on B6, not the queen. Get the bishop on B6, then the queen to D7, and black's not winning necessarily, but he's definitely not worse. He's got at least an even game with chances. But the way I played it, it just allowed white to open up the game and do me in. So like I say, the Nimzovich, I didn't win every game with it. Nobody does with any opening, and I think it's important to show some of my losses so you can see how black can lose from a good position, because black's going to get a good position in just about every variation. If any variation, actually, black's going to get a quite playable game. And the difference is black's going to understand the strategies, meaning if you take up this opening, you're going to understand the strategies, and not as well as white will, because he's busy prepared for every other main defense that you have. Okay, there it is. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Okay, when I next resume with the E5 lines, I will be going more into 3C3, because this is the move that I run into the most. And as I've explained, I used to play E6, and then later I switched to F6. And each one has some similarities and differences, and I do want to show both. I didn't give up one because I didn't like it. I just wanted to play a different one and just stuck with the F6 idea. But I want to show both simply to give you an idea of how to play this. And since there's a lot of variations of the Nimzovich, I've got a lot of interest in the Fred gambit that I presented last last video, and I've got to get into more lines of the Fred. As I say, there's the decline lines that I have to show, and there's several critical lines in there. Some that black can win quickly, and I have won quickly with it. And then there's more lines on the accepted, and I showed the crazy line D5 knight H4, and as I said, I've lost faith in E5, but I haven't shown you my other line here instead of E5 yet. If you do run into knight H4 and blitz, go ahead and play what I showed you. Even if white somehow finds knight C3, black has this very active game, and if it's a blitz game, you've got tremendous winning chances. Be careful in a tournament game. I played it in correspondence chess. I got away with it 20 years ago. But there's other lines too. The main ones being bishop B5, which I've had played on me countless times, as well as D4. And I've even had G4 played against me in this position. So I want to get into more of the Fred, because it's if you're willing to try it, it's not only going to shock your opponent, it's going to give you some fun games if you're good at blitz, and that's pretty much what it's good for, is blitz chess. And you could try it in a tournament if you outrank your opponent by several hundred points, just to have potential future opponents waste their time scouting you and preparing lines against it. But anyway, thanks so much for your time for looking at this. There will be another Fred video soon, and then I've got to get back into some of the other lines that I've barely touched on. It's a never-ending series, this Nimzovich. There's going to be a lot coming to it. So take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.